Whether we like it or not, bad fashion trends almost always find a way to creep back into style. You may have heard that pop collars are making a comeback. I wouldn't mind that. Or if you've gone out lately, you may see some people rocking the Jinko jeans again. Remember those? Or maybe you know someone who still wears a lot of pastels.
Right.
Okay. Nice! Yes!
Certain fashion always makes a comeback, and so do certain politicians.
It's one of the most indelible images in modern politics, that 2000 convention kiss.
I'm sorry, we should have had a viewer warning up there. Al Gore is back like a bad fashion trend. We thought we'd stuffed him back in the closet, with the mothballs, but since Biden's in quarantine, the networks booked Al Gore this weekend. The most boring politician of all time took a victory lap to say that he was right all along. He told you it'd be hot in the summer.
Well, the scientists have predicted these extraordinary and catastrophic events for going on decades now. And the fact that they were dead right, maybe a little conservative even in their projections, should cause us to pay more careful attention to what they're warning us about now. The survival of our civilization is at stake.
Where was Al Gore doing that hit from? Outer space? And if you don't believe Al Gore has a message for you.
The climate deniers are really in some ways similar to all of those almost 400 law enforcement officers in Uvalde, Texas, who were waiting outside an unlocked door while the children were being massacred. They heard the screams, they heard the gunshots, and nobody stepped forward.
Jesse Watters Primetime has a rule of thumb. We don't make analogies and compare anything to slavery, the Holocaust, 9/11, or school shootings. It's served us well so far. But Al Gore, the climate shock jock, will say anything for money and attention. What are Al Gore's scientific credentials? Well, his father was a senator, so he became a senator, and then he invented the internet, a place where he can read about science. With all of this knowledge, you'd think Al Gore never was wrong. And it's not like he's ever been wrong, right? He predicted the polar ice caps would be gone.
There is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, the ice caps in the North Pole have actually grown since he said that. He also predicted polar bears would all die from drowning.
That's not good for creatures like polar bears who depend on the ice. A new scientific study shows that for the first time they're finding polar bears that have actually drowned, swimming long distances, up to 60 miles, to find the ice.
The polar bear population has been steadily increasing for the last 15 years. But my favorite personal all-time Gore prediction was that Manhattan would be underwater by now.
If Greenland broke up and melted, this is what would happen to Manhattan. They can measure this precisely, just as the scientists could predict precisely how much water would breach the levees in New Orleans. The area where the World Trade Center Memorial is to be located would be underwater.
Good thing they stopped Trump from buying Greenland. I would have had to have swum to work today. Gore's been wrong more than Fauci. And like Fauci, he dodges anytime you ask him a direct question.
What's your reaction to the fact that the Arctic ice is actually increasing?
Not doing an interview right now.
One last question for you. Are you embarrassed at all?
I'm not doing an interview.
Are you embarrassed at all by ClimateGate, sir?
I'm not doing an interview right now. I'm having lunch.
Do you stand to make any money from cap and trade?
And Gore makes money like a stick-up artist. He tells the American people, give me all your cash or you're going to die. And the climate business pays big bucks. He's worth something like $300 million. He's got a $2.5 million house in Nashville with a $30,000 utility bill. And he just bought a $9 million villa on the ocean in California. Better be high up, Al, because the rising sea levels might flood the foyer. Where does he get all this money? Well, his documentary banked $50 million at the box office. And he sold Current TV to a bunch of rich Arab oil sheiks who own Al Jazeera, a station not really known for environmentalism. When Al Gore watches ISIS beheading videos on Al Jazeera, I wonder if he has any regrets. He pocketed a massive $100 million from the sale, of course. Just like any grifter, he's always looking for an easy payday. In the middle of the George Floyd protests, while companies were making money off racism, Al Gore found a way to connect climate change to racism, saying the need for climate action is bound together with the struggle for racial equality and liberation. I mean, even Greta Thunberg thought that was a little too slick. Now, the week after Joe Manchin kills the Green New Deal, Al Gore just shows up with a deal of his own. The former vice president just launched a new $1.7 billion investment fund. It only invests in green companies. And Gore takes 20% before you see any of your profits. But at least you feel good about yourself. Al Gore is like a climate priest. You pay a percent to the church to save your soul. But has Al Gore convinced you that he's right about the weather? Because Gore keeps saying it's hotter than ever, but how did we even measure the Earth's temperature over 100 years ago? Dennis Miller has a great line about, I think, 100 years ago, we didn't have indoor plumbing. You trust those guys to take the temperature of the entire Earth? I mean, if things are hotter today, it's about to start cooling down because birth rates are falling all over the world. I've seen some predictions that say global population is going to be cut in half. We're deindustrializing, we're deglobalizing, and we're not having as many babies as we used to. That right there should cut global emissions big time. No more global warming, right? The world kind of has a way of healing itself, doesn't it? And America is doing a pretty good job of reducing emissions with natural gas. So if Gore was really concerned about emissions reductions, he'd be pushing for fracking, right? Or for nuclear. But he's not. Gore's a snob who thinks he knows better and wants to feel self-righteous. And he needs your money to do it.